name is Sheridan Ruth, and I am here to welcome you home. This is the Exposed Podcast. Where we reveal the body-based ways to ease anxiety, heal trauma, and create an empowered connection with love and money using nervous system regulation and a healthy dose of self-compassion. Welcome to Exposed. In today's episode, we are speaking with Jackie Stewart, who just finished up a coaching container with me. And in our time together and in this episode, we cover nervous system regulation when you are busy and you have a family and a relationship to hold and to experience and to nourish and invest in. We cover financial trauma and its sneaky ways of showing up and how to actually find your true beliefs inside of your body. We cover anxiety, overthinking, and what to do with all of that energy, and how to do all of this healing work, or how to even consider a coaching container when you are somebody who has a lot of things to do. You're busy. And how to do nervous system regulation work and why you need to when you're busy. Have a listen. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on this topic. If you are an entrepreneur and you are building a business that you know deep down in your soul you want to build without burnout or without having to follow strategies and tools that can feel kind of a bit sticky or self-betraying, please go ahead and find the link below to book a expansion call where you and I are going to create a 4-month action plan to building a body-based business without burnout and without self-betrayal. And then you're going to walk away with clarity on how a one-on-one container can support you in doing so. Find the link below. Please subscribe. And like and share this podcast. It really, really helps me get it out there and share people's stories and share this type of information. It is super, super helpful. So please do that and enjoy the episode. Hello, Jackie. Welcome, and everybody, welcome to this conversation with Jackie. I've been looking forward to this. We scheduled this about a month ago, and I've been really looking forward to it because I'm really excited to share with you all Jackie's story. Jackie has been such a pleasure to work with. And she joined Body Based Business at the end of last year. And here we are on the other side of things. So Jackie, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you've kind of ended up becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah. For sure. First of all, thank you, Sheridan, for having me today. It's really something I was looking forward to. I was like, this is so cool to, I remember the last conversation we had where we wrapped up our work together, and it just felt so emotional and so, oh my God, I can't believe that in these 4 or 5 months, this has happened for me with your support. So I feel like having this conversation today is really a celebration. And yeah, so last year I had a major crisis in my personal life, which really led to a lot of anxiety and just really intrusive thoughts, things that I'd never really dealt with before, at least not to that degree. And, it was a crisis between me and my husband. So it was a lot of like relationship stuff. And I remember being on Instagram looking for some relationship advice, and I found you. And a lot of things that you said just really, really resonated with me. And this is also when I started learning more about the nervous system and how it heals, mental challenges and can help you heal anxiety and all of these things. And it really did. Like I made a 360 when it came to all of my mental health challenges, just using nervous system regulation. And then When I booked a call with you, or no, I actually downloaded your free PDF on nervous system techniques, and I saw that there was an expansion call at the bottom, and I was like, I can at least check it out. And that was my attitude when I booked it, to say I can at least check it out. Like, let me see what she's about. And I remember when you and I started talking about, some of the things that I was really dealing with, which was being a chronic overthinker, being a chronic worrier, you said something that was so vital. And you asked me, what would you do with the energy that you put towards overthinking and worrying? And
Did I say that?
you did say that.
I don't remember that at all. Okay, cool.
Oh my God. I think it stuck with me. It's something that I tell people now, because it really made me realize that I'm using energy in order to overthink, in order to worry. And I'm like, wait a minute. So if I don't do that, I can put that energy towards something else. Like, that's possible.
Mm.
And that's really what happened. I mean, before you and I started working together, but then really as you and I started working together, all of a sudden, as I came out of survival mode, I had this burst of creativity, all of these ideas, all of these things that I wanted to do, which, considering my human design is quite a lot. But yeah, so, when you said what you said, that was crystal clear for me. Like, yeah, I really want to work with her. There's something that she has that I want to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were kind of on the tail end of a real difficult experience that was leading to all of this overthinking and anxiety and draining all of your energy. And so you weren't fulfilling really what you wanted to be doing. You didn't have that creative energy. And then, I mean, I remember working with you, and you messaged me once and you were like, Sheridan, I have so much creative energy that it's like, it was actually your nervous system in that moment had to learn how to hold creative energy, because it hadn't held it. It had held that like heavy energy, and we had to workshop and be like, okay, now that we have this influx of new creative energy, how do we hold it without becoming dysregulated and going back down into that like sympathetic and also that collapse, right? And so that was really fun to watch and witness how you went from not feeling inspired to being like, okay, now there's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Not that ever too much, but it was a lot. You had a lot of options.
So much. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
And one of the other reasons why I felt like, okay, this is really what I want is, even before you and I started talking last October, let me go back a little bit further. Last summer, my husband said, what do you think if I retired from my teaching job and just went all in on my business? And usually my response would have been absolutely not. Like, we need this stable income and all of that. But something inside of me was like, he's been wanting to do that for years. So let me just trust him in that. And so he had made that decision for him. And then in October, I was like, what if I went all in on your business with all of my leadership, organizational skills that I have from my work experience and the degree that I have? And I remember, so this is how we kind of like got to the idea of working together and collaborating on this business. But I was so worried and so stressed about, okay, how are we going to do that as parents, though? We have 2 little children. How are we not going to let it ruin our marriage? Like, how, can we handle both the work and the love? And how can we not let stress or work or clients or whatever is coming our way get us out of the routine that we already have established as a family, right? I was really worried about us then not honoring family time anymore and just working and just being hella angry at each other or whatever. And when I talked to you and talked about the different opportunities that I had to work with you, you said, oh yeah, you can also add the body-based business. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a thing? Like,
Well,
really?
yeah. I'm so curious for you, because like I feel like you and I kind of naturally arrived at that point. And body-based business I've had it behind the scenes now for a year, and I've gone through my whole process of actually releasing it now to the public. And you were one of the people who kind of sneaked in. And what I'm really curious about for you is, at that point, if I remember correctly, you, yeah, like what made you feel like body-based business was the correct path compared to maybe other things, like, there's a lot of strategy and how to, and like other coaching, like there's so many things that you can get everything. So for you in that moment, how did you know that that was the correct path?
That's a really good question because at that point, when we had that conversation at the end of the year, I had already learned so much about the nervous system and how it literally impacts every single thing in your life. So I knew it would also impact the business. And when you said body-based business, I knew it was this connection between like intuition and, really being in your body, like regulating yourself, knowing when you are dysregulated in your business and how you can bring yourself back to regulation in order to, continuously thrive. I knew that was the way to go because all of the strategies that are out there and other programs, especially when you look at like corporate world, are great, but we see how people burn themselves out. We see how they neglect their families. We see how stressed they are about keeping up with what they're making, not trusting like their own intuition or body, and like being led into this process. And I also had read somewhere on Instagram from somebody else about like your business, like your intuitive business really being that extension of yourself, its own entity that you can really connect to. And all of these things just really resonated with me, where I was like, okay, if I'm going to do business, this is how I want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you tapped into that wise woman of like, if this is happening, it is only going to happen this way. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah. Can you give our listeners some advice around juggling the really, I want to say demanding, and I don't mean that in like oh, it's so demanding. I don't mean that in a bitter way, but the realistically demanding practice of having a young family and prioritizing your marriage and making sure that it's going to thrive while you guys are doing this together. Particularly around time, I would love to hear how you managed to work with me and still have time for those things.
Yeah. Well, the lucky thing, or that I consider myself lucky, is that my husband and I are both at home. So, we both decided we wanted to be home for a second baby the same way we were home for a daughter when COVID hit. Um, so that really helped, right? He's home with me. We both are taking care of the baby. So I could definitely block out that time to work with you. And then we would just mostly switch on and off when it came to like doing things for a business and taking care of the baby. And I guess the second time around, you just become a lot better in like juggling things at the same time and working with one hand while you breastfeed the baby on the other side. So I guess, a mix of experience and then um, using strategy as we're both working from home.
Okay, I love that. And I feel like you're not giving yourself enough credit.
I guess so. I really don't.
Like, especially because I remember one conversation and we were talking about, I think something, oh, I should remember the details more. Something had happened. You were in full mum role, and I think you were almost going to be bleeding as well. And I remember me and you being in Telegram, and I asked you kind of like, okay, what tools do you have right now to regulate? And you found them. And I know that's the thing that you consistently we're asking this yourself, that question, like, how can I regulate right now? How can I regulate? How can I regulate and be a mom? How can I regulate and then do a little bit of work? Like, do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nervous system regulation, I could talk about how it changed my life. I could write a book about it, and maybe I should. No, not just about that, but it's been in every area of my life, visible relationship, invisible relationship, like finances or the way I relate to God. That was a big issue that I had. My own
Yeah.
body image, and food. Every single thing has improved since implementing nervous system regulation.
Tell us some more. Tell us a little bit about who you were before and what has changed.
I think the biggest thing that has changed is being able to increase the capacity to feel my feelings and to detach the story as I'm feeling the sensation in my body. That's been
Mm-hmm.
probably the biggest thing. And how how am I going to say this? I think the other thing is feeling my feelings. I lost it a little bit here. What was your question again?
Yeah, can I ask a follow-up question?
Hmm.
As a result of being able to detach the story and maybe to what the story is and just process the sensation, what has happened for you?
Okay. Detaching the story from the sensation that I feel in my body has literally allowed me to be happy and joyful even when I feel like shit. And this has become such a theme of my life. It's actually something that I want to talk about a lot more on my own platform and podcast, because you can do that. And you blew my mind teaching me to do that. I remember when I was going through some, really heavy feelings, and you told me, you said, I kind of, so I think I said something like, oh, I'm feeling this, and this is how, this is what I think that means. And you said, well, what do you want it to mean? And I'm like, what? I can change the meaning around feelings? Like, that's in my power? That is insane.
Yeah.
So, like doing this to say, okay, I'm feeling anxiety because I'm taking this next big step towards the business, and interpreting this anxiety as, okay, you shouldn't do it because this sensation is coming up. Now saying, no, what if that anxiety just meant it was going to be really good and exciting and, something you haven't done before, because I haven't done before, so that really changed perspective. And it changed, from being so paralyzed out of fear to like being courageous and actually taking that step. And then, you know, as feelings arise, allowing myself to detach the story from the feeling and just feeling it. I have noticed a million times since doing this that the feeling that wants to come up literally just comes up and out in like 30 seconds to 60 seconds, and then it's gone. And then I can bring back the story that I had, and it's no longer attached to the feeling because the feeling is gone. Or it has really just allowed me to sit with feelings and, like I said, just feel good about it. Oh, this is just some anxiety, but it doesn't mean what I think it means. Or this is just some anger, but it doesn't mean what I think it means, you know? Yeah, it's it's changed everything.
Yeah, it sounds like you've developed this really wonderful capacity to allow yourself. I think of it as like you're holding your storm. You are holding yourself on an axis that is so firm that you can have this crazy storm inside of you or externally with kids and growing and coaching business and kind of all of that energy that is so rampant everywhere, basically. But you're just like this happy little floating, like, hey guys, everything is really beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. And I've also realized that since being able to do that, right, because the story to the feeling no longer scares me, I don't have to push the feeling down anymore, because doing that takes up a lot of energy. Pushing feelings down and trying to, reject them, resist them, deny them, getting them out of your head, and just using regulating tools to just push it back down. Like, I do think they can be very helpful just to increase the window of tolerance if something is really intense. But, you know, if you don't use it to increase the window of tolerance so that then you can feel it, but you're using regulation tools to really push it back down. It's a struggle. It is so exhausting to do that.
Yeah, this is something really important. So I need us all to highlight, like Jackie, what you've just said is something that even advanced practitioners still struggle to understand and to teach. So I need everyone to just listen to this. We do not practice regulation to put things down. We do not practice anger management to put your anger away. We're trying, one, because it doesn't work, and two, it takes up so much energy. I had a really cool conversation last night with somebody that I met through a friend of a friend. We're out, and he's like, so he was kind of asking me about what I do, and he has no idea of all of this. And he comes from like a Freudian psychoanalysis background. And he goes, yeah, so what's the difference between coaching and nervous system and trauma and healing and all that and psychoanalysis? And I start explaining, and he goes, is that like effective, or is it just like kumbaya? And I was like, you know what? It might be a little bit kumbaya, but it's effective. So you can take it and it can be effective, or you can fight it and you can stay in the same place, essentially. And that's like exactly what you're saying. It's like, you can be annoyed about it, but if you want to get anywhere, it doesn't need to make sense. And at the same time, if you want to get anywhere, you need to learn to just embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can say something to this comment about this being kumbaya, there are so many ways, so many different ways to regulate your nervous system because everybody's body is so unique. Like some tools that really work for me might not work that great for you. So, there might be more kumbaya woo woo kind of practices out there that honestly I don't really feel drawn to. I'm a very practical, analytical person. So, practices where I can just, and also, I'm busy, right? Scheduling a lot of time for me where I can do things and regulate myself doesn't always work. And I know that if that was the only way, I wouldn't keep up with it because it's not realistic as a mother of two, somebody who works from home. So for me, I needed tools that were really practical, that not only made sense, but also were like, okay, there's literally science behind it that it works, right? And
Yeah.
so, I know my husband, for example, he loves meditation, which I don't even think is that much of kumbaya or woo woo, but some people consider it that. And that is just not a tool that I use as much. I prefer like these techniques where you literally touch your body and speak the language of sensation to signal safety. And I can do this as I'm breastfeeding. I can do this as I'm cooking. I can do this while I'm laying on the floor, right? Playing with my toddler or my baby jumping
Washing the
on me.
dishes.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it is easy to say all of this woo woo stuff, but it really isn't. And even if you feel some type of way about that type of stuff, that doesn't mean there aren't techniques out there that will work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just speak my language. I am also, like if I can't do it in two minutes, I'm not gonna do it. I would love to be able to say that I will, but I won't
Right.
because I know myself and I just won't. If anyone is interested in learning a little bit more about the science behind that, you will find, I'm going to link the Unstoppable. It's a free masterclass in the show notes, and you can have a look and we can go through that. And Jackie, I think you can probably support people with that too, but we'll get to that in a second. I kind of want to pause and just do a very self-centered, toot my own horn thing a little bit for a second, because you're making me feel actually very proud, Jackie, because so last night I was speaking to this guy and he asked me, what are the evidence-based, tools and what are your certifications? And he's kind of asking all these really, really good questions. And I'm happy to talk about that and ask those questions. I think they're really good questions you should ask. And he goes, yeah, but like what tools specifically in your sessions do you use? And I was like, well, this is my certification. These are my trainings. And the reason that my clients come back to me is because I know the right question to ask. That's what you're actually paying for. You're asking me to read the entire situation, pull on thousands of hours of research and experience, and find the very one question that will pivot your entire life. And it's really cool, Jackie, because I've practiced that skill. And so now hearing you say back to me twice, it feels cool because it's like, oh yeah, like that practice was it worth something, you know? That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, really, you just explained exactly what you do. And, I've had a therapist for 2 years, which she's great, nothing wrong with her, but the way you are just able to really ask the right question, I mean, like a therapist, right? That's what they train to do too. But, I remember so many times just talking and blah, 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 vomiting all of this stuff on you. And you're taking everything that I'm saying, putting it into perspective, and then you know exactly what you have to ask. Like, that was really mind blowing. And your ability to do that definitely made me look forward to our sessions and working with you, because as somebody who's so multi-passionate all over the place, and sometimes, I mean, I'm getting better at it, but at the beginning where I didn't have these tools, really caught up in my feelings and in my thoughts, having somebody who's like, okay, well, let's look at it from the bigger picture. And let me ask you this one question, which when you did, everything else that I was so worried about or couldn't find an answer to didn't matter anymore, because you asked the right question. I had the right answer, right? And things were good. It was, yeah, I
Yeah.
always look forward to it.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. We need to talk about your multi-passionateness. I think a lot of us identify with being multi-passionate, probably, if you're listening, because we are such complex beings. And I'm really curious, Jackie. So obviously, you and I worked around different passions and different decisions and things like that. Where are you focusing your work now? What's got you really lit up? And if someone was to go and find you on Instagram right now, what type of support can they expect to get?
Yeah. So, what I'm really lit up about and have been since the beginning of the year, since we started working together, is my own podcast. That's just been the ongoing project. I feel so connected to what I'm doing. Excuse me. I feel so even connected to the audience. Like, it feels such a sacred space for me to have these
Mm.
conversations with others. And I can't really I can't really pin it down to just like one category of what I'm talking about. But if I had to look at the broader perspective of where my topics are leading, and even my Instagram, where, which is the platform I'm using the most to promote it and express myself aside from the podcast, it's really about alignment and authenticity. Like, those are the overarching themes that I talk about and that people can get support on.
Yeah. How does somebody know that they're not living in alignment and authenticity?
That's a good question. I think a very strong way to know that you are living out of alignment is frustration. I think that's a really, really big sign that you are not doing things or that you're not living in alignment, and just the amount or lack of joy that you feel as you're doing things that you're doing. Right. I mean, if we really put it towards career, I think it's such a big indicator, whether or not you're doing things that you really want to do. If, you dread going to work, you constantly just live for the weekends. All you do is, yeah, but I have to pay my bills. Like, that's really your own focus. I think that's a very practical way to see whether or not you're doing things that you enjoy or not. But then I also think if you take it a step further and look at the spirituality of being in alignment, I think mental health challenges, mental health, and just, having very bad emotional, what's the word that I'm looking for? I can't come up with a word, but I think those,
Nation, intelligence.
yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I think those are some signs that you can tell, okay, this is kind of like bigger than just me not liking my job, but this is my spirit, the greater things of everything telling me that I'm really not pursuing what my soul is desiring to do on this earth.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And I think that we're super lucky in a way to have that view. I remember a couple of years ago, I was back in Australia and I was speaking with somebody. I think it was in like a waiting room or something. And we were talking actually about human design, and we just answered that question, if anyone doesn't know what human design is, just go Google it. Don't go down the rabbit hole, though. It's really easy to like, just pause that in your brain and come back to it later, because that's a rabbit hole. All you need to know is what I'm about to say. We were talking about how to know if you're in alignment or not. And I said something a little bit similar to what you said. And this man says back to me, yeah, but isn't it normal for everyone to feel like that? Like, that just makes you sound like a human being. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, you know, I mean, I'm from a city with a lot of public servants. And my thought was, maybe it is here. Maybe it is for most of you, because you're working 9 to 5 in a job that doesn't really fulfill you. Maybe it is. But for me, that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Maybe for a small period of time, and then I got out of it because I immediately knew no. And I think, yeah, it's not normal.
Mm-mm.
It might be common, but it's not normal.
We've definitely normalized it. We really have. We really have made it normal to work in order to chase money instead of doing something that you enjoy and let money be the byproduct of you enjoying what you're doing.
So now you need to speak about your experience with money and how you feel so embodied and safe in speaking that truth in such a short period of time, because a couple of months ago you would have said something else, and I need you to share with everyone how we have done such a drastic like 180, because it's a really, really cool story. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a really cool story. And actually, the financial trauma that I held in my body almost stopped me from working with you because um, I remember us talking about it and I felt this initial, this is what I want to do, right? If we go back to human design, the sacral, let's do this impulsive, this is the hell yes that I was looking for. But my mind told me, this is money that you could put towards something else. You have to put towards something else. Because we were already in that transition of working for ourselves, building this business. So that was almost something that stopped me from working with you. But I continue. But obviously, I did, jump over my own hurdle and signed up to work with you. And then this is something else I think I really want to add about nervous system regulation, because this is also important to understand. The safer your body feels, the more things will come up, because your body now feels safe enough to actually heal this or feel this and release it. And this is what happened as you and I were working. Like I had all of these flashbacks to childhood memory with around money, things that would come up, right? And that in the very beginning of you and I working together kept me paralyzed. I had a really hard time breaking out of these patterns. And, our sessions though, I'm so grateful for it. It really helped me because whenever I would come in with anything, but talking about finances, and we would, just connect to that emotion and sit with the fear that was coming up, the worry that was coming up, the anxiety that was coming up, and, actually letting it speak. Every single thing that came up had literally nothing to do with what I thought it was, right? So, getting the wisdom out of the emotions related to finances, that were one way how I was able to ease like the intensity around it. And then the other part was what we talked about earlier, being able to feel feelings and detach the story from it. I think I actually said it on Telegram to you once when this really high bill came through, and it almost put me into panic attack. And, I was really worried. And then I told myself, wait a minute, detach the story, just feel what's coming up and sit with it. And I felt so good because it left literally within 60 seconds. And then all of a sudden I didn't feel the way I felt anymore. Yeah, that's really helped. And I was going to say something else. Keep losing track.
No, that was amazing. That was really, really good and really, really clear. And I think it just keeps coming back. One, regulate, expand your window of tolerance. Two, sit with the sensation, allow it to be there, detach from the story. How did you arrive? So that's kind of how we maybe came back to a neutral place. How did you arrive at the essence of not only is money neutral, but like I get to receive it, it's my birthright, and it kind of, this essence of money is caring for me.
Yeah. So I think one way that really helped was just constantly affirming it. And as I
Yeah,
was affirming it, using embodiment or nervous system regulation practices to kind of like ground myself in that new truth, because that is
yeah,
part of the science behind nervous system regulation. It rewires your brain, right? Neuroplasticity. So, replacing the subconscious fear that I had of money with loving affirmations that I want to hold around money.
dear listener, before we wrap the end of this episode up, I want you to know that I see you. I know that you're ready to bounce back from difficulties in your life quickly and with more ease by having the tools to regulate your nervous system and find inner peace instead of inner conflict. I know you're ready to embrace life's challenges and stresses and feel confident to take on whatever comes your way, including anxiety or anger, to move through them without manipulating them, without having to spend eternity in uncertainty, sticky emotions, and physical discomfort. You are ready to celebrate the growth of yourself, your relationship, your finances, without experiencing shame or guilt when you're doing it quicker than those around you. Which is why I'm extending an invitation to you to book an expansion call, where we will dive even deeper on exactly what you need in your personal situation to make this a reality, to go from overwhelmed managing big emotions and perhaps going into anxiety or depression to overflowing abundance, ease, and certainty. You'll get free support around your unique situation, and we will also discuss whether or not working through my ease framework in a one-on-one capacity is the best fit for you right now on your journey of becoming more resilient and regulated. Use the link in the show notes to lock in your call ASAP. I have a memory.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember it. We spoke a little bit about what truth feels like in the body, and how there was a session you and I did where we spoke about how not truth, lack of truth, feels like a constriction in the body. It doesn't feel freeing. And when there is a constriction around something in the body, it's telling us that we're missing the essence of that thing, the truth of that thing. And I remember a session with you, and I said, what do you want it to mean? Something along those lines. And I think you came to an affirming mantra around money. We kind of played with it a little bit. And my memory kind of gets off a little bit because I'm so in these sessions, and maybe yours is as well. But based on what I can recall, we kind of found your truth based on what felt expansive in your body. And I think that created not this embodied sense of, oh, this other person said this thing, so I guess probably maybe it's true, but actually, no, this is true. I am 100% sure that this is true. There is not a doubt in the world that this could not be true.
Yeah. No, I remember the session now that you say it. I don't remember the details of it either, but it does bring up something that I think based on that session I started doing. And oh yeah, that's what I was going to say about embodiment, right? I really envisioned myself what would I feel like if I felt really connected to money? Not in an obsessive way, but in a very appreciative way, knowing that money's always for me and money's always supporting me, and it loves me, like it wants to be in relationship with me. What does Jackie feel like who already has this relationship with money, right? And, I think the important word here is feel, right? To like really tap into that energy. And I also remember in one session you said, because I had a really hard time with that, you said you don't even have to embody the whole feeling of it. What does 5% of that feel like? And that was so doable for me because I was having such a hard time. Like there was so much resistance to it, but I was able to bring up 5%, like itty bitty feeling of what would Jackie feel like who had this loving relationship with money. And I felt it somewhere in my stomach, and you just kept telling me, so breathe it into all of your body, like breathe it up into your shoulders, into your arms, down into your legs. And I mean, I had to do it for weeks because the trauma around finances that I had was really running my life. It was super intense. So I knew it was going
Yeah.
to be a lot of work to let go of it. And it was a lot of work to let go of it. But, bringing myself back to, you don't have to be able to feel the full energy, the full picture, like come to 5% made me less like I'm failing at it. And it made me feel like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. And I think a really good place for us to end and allow the listeners to take that piece of wisdom away, because that was really well articulated, Jackie. Um, Thank you for being on. How can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram at the.JackieStewart. And they can find me on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify. This is where I'm hosting my podcast called The Jackie Stewart Podcast. And yeah, I would definitely appreciate people checking it out and subscribing to it.
Yeah, and you guys will have all of those links down below. You can be clicking on it, subscribing, downloading, getting prepped with episodes right now. Thank you so much for being on, Jackie. This has actually genuinely been the highlight of my day. So yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having me.
A big and special thanks to Upturned for composing this magical piece of music, and to GS Studios for mixing it. To find Upturned's other tracks or ask for your own special custom piece of music, go say hello using their contact details in the show notes.